What's up guys, Nate here with Roof Korean Concepts, out here today with my buddy Hutton. We want to talk a little bit about how to set up a fighting rifle or a patrol rifle or a hard use rifle, specifically talking about an AR-15 platform. Now in general, we're of the same opinion that a fighting rifle should have 4 main components when it comes to attachments. You want to list those off for us?
Yeah, so my main 4 when I start in on a duty rifle or patrol rifle, something of that nature, my 4 minimums are I need a light, backup irons, I go for a red dot because of the speed, and then a sling. Generally 2-point, do not do single point, it's always 2-point. So that's kind of where my basis starts, and then we get into other stuff depending on what your job is. We'll change accessories that you have to have.
So a couple things to consider when you're talking about those components. Let's talk about optic. If you like LPVOs, that's one thing, those are becoming more popular, but having a reliable optic is the most important. That doesn't mean you have to always buy the Gucciest of Gooch when it comes to optics, because you can find some that are more budget friendly, that have passed torture tests, that will work for you. There are some advantages and limitations, and it's important to know those when you do buy an optic, but having an optic that's reliable and either has great battery life, or you understand if it doesn't have battery life, you need to keep some extra batteries with you. For example, on something like this where it's an EOTech, it does not have the same battery life as an aim point, so I do keep spare batteries with it. When we're talking about lights, I think there are just a few brands out there that you should really consider, those being Owl, Mod Light, Surefire, Streamlight. Those are going to be, Arasaka would be another one. Those are going to be your quality lights when it comes to a duty rated light. Slings are important for retention. You consider that you generally have a holster when you're carrying a pistol. A sling is like a holster for a rifle. You really do need it for retention. If you have to do anything movement wise with your hands and you need to retain that rifle, or if someone goes hands on with you, just having something to keep that rifle attached to your body is very important. And finally, having a backup sighting system. Now notice I didn't necessarily say irons, because on some of these high mounts I can't actually get irons. Now I do have offset irons on this, but a laser, for example, while they are tactical, they do function well as a secondary aiming solution if your primary sighting solution goes down. So we're going to talk about a few of the rifles we have in front of us in terms of their setup and why we chose certain parts. So I'm going to have Hutton go ahead and introduce himself, and he'll talk a little bit about his rifle setup.
Hey, so I'm Hutton. I'm connected to Roof Korean Concepts. I'm one of the post-certified trainers. So I am post-certified trained. I am also full-time Leo. I do want to go over somewhat of a disclaimer. I chose these rifles. None of these were given to me. Some of the parts and stuff like that I don't have a lot of time on, so I'm not going to speak as far as complete reliability on longevity, but I haven't had any issues now, and I've run them pretty hard. So I'll go over my old school. It's a Car 15 build. It's pretty simple. I have optic, I have my irons it's a dedicated carry handle rail. So I still have my main iron sights. I'm running a primary arms, basically Comp M clone. Comp M's are extremely hard to find. This was a cheap option. If it breaks, I'll probably just run a Comp M, but I haven't had any issues out of it yet. It still has night vision settings because I do run nods. I'm running a Protac HLX. I generally don't do 1,000 because I'm indoors and outdoors with my job, but I wanted this basically dedicated for outside, and if it had to go indoors, it can. So I've got my light, I've got my 2-point sling on here, I've got my red dot, I've got my backup irons, and then I'm also, because it's kind of a clone Car 15 style build, I'm running a boonie packer. I'm in law enforcement. A lot of guys aren't running AR mags on them. I don't want them to go to a pocket if someone has to go to my rifle, so a boonie packer was a good option. So that's one setup. You want me to go over my main build?
Yeah, actually, talk a little bit about the height of your optic running on a carry handle.
Okay, so I don't know the exact measurement, but from what I've felt, we're running 226 mounts, and which I'll go over on my main build. It's right about the same era. So we've kind of had this deal with, and that may be another video, but we've kind of had this deal go where we were at absolute, then it was lower 1/3, the Gucciest you can get, and then it was, you know, all the way up 193 to 226.
Yeah, we've had this meta shift of like going to lower, then coming back, and now everyone's running. Well, as you'll see, every rifle here that we actually have, pistols, yeah, has a high mount of some type, whether it be carry handle. This is a Scalarworks 193 mount. He's running a Unity 226 mount for a T2, and this is a Unity riser for an EOTech. So we're on the high mount train. We'll kind of go a little bit into why that is the case, probably in another video, but we'll talk a little bit about it here. But yeah, go ahead and talk about your main squeeze as well.
Okay, so like I said, you have to change for different jobs that you do. This is my main gun that I run at work, so I do not have backup irons on here. There's other systems you can go to besides just backup irons, but basically I'm running an 11.5. I do like the 10.5, 10.3 style, but I'm a bigger guy. I've got really extremely long arms, so I kind of stick with the 11.5. The other side of it is too, is I'm running basically all my internals. Now externally, I've got a lot of money in it, but internally is basically mil spec. So I did do a superlative arms tunable gas block just so I can run my can. It will run without the can, but I wanted to tune it directly for that can. But I still have my light. I'm running a Protac Railmount 2. So it's 650, 40 lumens, something like that. I'm also running a PEC 15, Unity 226, and everything else is basically mil spec. I do run a bad lever and some extended mag releases. And
we know
like
some
that.
of you are going to dislike that we're running bad levers, but we don't care.
Yep. So and then I guess I kind of want to break into. So I don't run iron sights. That might be a deal because that is one of our 4.
Well, a backup sighting system, but you do run a backup sighting system.
So I run several. I've got the bloom of my light that I can run off. Obviously, if you train it, right? I can look down the entire bore of my gun, not through the actual bore, but, you know, using the whole system as an indirect line point index. I've got IR laser. I've got Viz laser if I'm not running nods. I've got my optic. If my optic goes down, I can still use the outside body squared up on a target as a system. So that's what I'm running.
Now, does the Unity has a built-in backup system, doesn't it?
It does, but I just don't have my front sight. Now, if I went to a Steiner or something like that, I could run a...
but you can put a front sight post in here and run a super short.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you could.
Cool. So that's his setup. So again, pointing it out, he's full-time law enforcement. I am a post-certified firearms instructor. So I do teach firearms for an academy. But other than that, guys, I'm just a civilian. So again, this is a fighting rifle setup. Very similar in a lot of ways. This is actually a 10.5 build. And I'm running both I do have this is the Holosun IR and Viz laser. It's a very compact unit, which is something that was important to me. I'm also running a Streamlight. They've proven themselves to be reliable. This is also a 650 lumen light. I have the Magpul Pros as another aiming system on mine that are offset. The 226 mount is too tall for you to see irons through. And also, since I sometimes run the Unity flip to center magnifier on the back, I can't run a traditional flip up rear with a flip up front. So I went to offsets on mine. But I do have multiple aiming options with this weapon. Between the EOTech, I also have the 2 offset irons. I also have a Viz laser and a white light, and I can index off the rifle. So I have a lot of options when it comes to this. Briefly, let's talk about why we're running high mounts. You're going to see a lot more, and you probably have if you've been watching videos. You see a lot more YouTubers, operators, whatever you want to call it, people building fighting rifles with tall mounts. And they aren't even necessarily running night vision very often. But there are a few reasons why you might want to run a tall mount. Number one, if you're working around kit. So we're required to wear kit on the range when we're working with students. He wears kit when he's out on patrol.
Every day.
Every day. So when you are working around kit, having a taller mount allows you to shoulder without moving or dipping your head. It also makes it more comfortable to have more options when you're indexing in your shoulder working around kit. The other thing that high mounts aid with is if you're having to wear gas masks As we've discovered, if you've never worn one, you cannot get behind a standard height optic. Same with night vision. For passive aiming, you need to have that taller mount so you can get eyes on to have a passive aiming solution. Passive meaning, whereas an IR laser, if someone else is wearing night vision, they can see that it's like a laser beam straight back to my location. So if you are running high mounts, you can actually passively aim through your optics. You're not giving away your position. So those are just a few reasons.
Which would mean your eye would be behind the nod. Your nod and eye would be behind your optic behind.
Correct. And finally, if you don't run any of that, there's still a reason why you might want to run a high mount. Biomechanically, it keeps your body in an upright position so that when I am coming up to find reticle, you notice I don't have to dip my neck. When I'm running lower third, as I come up, I have to dip into the gun to get a full cheek weld. 226 mounts or 193 mounts, you start to look at more of what's called a chin weld, where I keep my eyes upright, my body upright, I look at what I want to hit, and I bring the rifle up and then impose the dot. My chin does get an index on my stock or brace, whatever it may be, and I don't have to actually dip my neck into an uncomfortable position. This is really beneficial when you're moving through a house or you're just moving in general, to be able to keep your body upright. You don't get as much muscle fatigue from having to turtle into your optic. Any thoughts on high mounts?
So obviously with your body being more stood up instead of hunched over, right, you're not going to fatigue as quickly, right, because you're more stood up, and you're not turtling your shoulders up into your neck. And also, I mean, it's more of a natural movement to be stood more up when you're running that rifle. So I believe there is some downsides, but that the higher mounts are the way to go.
Let's actually talk about what might be a downside. Really the only one I can think about, and it's not really even a downside, it's more about just knowing your weapon. Your height over bore does change quite a bit, more than you normally would think. So height over bore, meaning how high your reticle is above your barrel. It comes into play when you're shooting at closer quarters, maybe 25 yards and in or 15 yards and in. The higher your optic is, the higher there is of a divergence when you're in closer quarters. So for example, at 10 yards, I'm going to be about 4 inches low with this mount. So if I'm trying to shoot into a head box, I'm going to have to actually aim at like the top of the head to get a shot in the T-zone. Okay, so understanding your holds, they do change just a little bit, but as a rifle owner, it's your job to know your holdovers on your specific weapon and optic setup.
The only thing I have to say, obviously coming from the instructor teaching background, right, anytime I change a piece, right, even if it was something as minute as extended takedown pins, I'm going to run that rifle to make sure that I'm proficient no matter what. Do I think takedown pins are really going to, right, mess with my ability to run that rifle very much? More than likely not, but it would still make me feel better if I'm willing to put someone's life, or depending on your area, many people's lives at risk when that rifle breaks, if it has to, God forbid.
Right.
So you should be training. If you don't know your holds, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just knowing your weapon, knowing your weapon system. One of the things we see with a lot of people, we see a lot of students come through, and we see a lot of different rifle builds come through. Sometimes people will buy a bunch of different parts and stuff that looks cool or that they watched a video on, and they never go out and shoot them. They never find out if that setup works for them, or they never go out and train in kit, especially law enforcement students who are going to be wearing kit on the job. They get these rifle builds, but they've never actually run them around kit. And when we put them out on the range under under stress and start forcing them to manipulate their firearm while in kit, while under stress, while hot and sweaty, you start to see those failure points come up really fast. So it is really important, guys. Every YouTuber I know that's worth their salt is in the 2A community will tell you this. You only look cool if you train. You have to go out and train. One more thing before we finish this video, I do want to talk about this really quickly. This is what I would consider, if we are talking about a straight up patrol style rifle, a really great example. You have a basic, this is a 12.5 with an A2 front sight. This is actually a JP Enterprise adjustable gas block, but you can find some taper pinned A2 fronts. 14.5s are really common, 16-inch, whatever it may be. So we do have, this is a war comp from Surefire, so it's a flash suppressor and a compensator combined. It actually is really good. It doesn't give off that much flame at night, which is really nice, and it's not too concussive if you're working on a team line. A2 front sight with a backup. This is the Midwest Industries Combat Rear Flip Up. It's actually one of my new favorite backup irons because it's got a medium-sized aperture. So unlike some of your others where it has a small and a large, this one's right in between. It has one option. You don't have to mess with a secondary hinge. And so it's really solid, it's low profile, and it's slim. It's a great option. I am running a Streamlight. This is the Protac 1L, so it's a little, I think it's 350 lumen. So not quite as bright, but good enough for most of your urban environments or in a house or something like that. I am running a red dot on a Scalarworks 193 mount. So this is slightly taller than lower third, but again, it allows me to get that nice chin index and not have to dip my head into the optic while also being really lightweight. It's also QD, so again, I can't actually see my irons through the optic with this height of mount, but the Scalarworks mount is QD, meaning I just ratchet this off and I can remove it and run my irons if for some reason my optic went down. And then in the back, I'm running a Radian Raptor Ambi charging handle.
Quick question, just a kind of a shout out to Scalarworks. So what's good about that ratcheting optic mount when you go to break off and then go back on?
So they've actually figured out a way to make this retain zero. So if I zero this optic and take it off and then put it back on in the same spot, it will return to zero. That's really important, guys. It's really useful if I do have to take this off for any reason to be able to put it back in the same slot and have it be still maintaining zero. That's a big plus.
Big time plus.
Big time plus. Okay guys, so we threw a lot of information at you, but I hope that helped when you're considering setting up a hard use rifle. We kind of share the same opinion with any rifle that comes to our house. We consider it a hard use. Like, so I don't build anything that's just for range or just for competition. It's a little more expensive to go with reliable parts because you tend to be buying stuff. I mean, you know, this Unity setup alone, I think this is almost $100 for this Unity riser. The mount is $130, and then you add in the cost of your optics. Guys, it adds up quick, but buy once, cry once.
Buy once, cry once.
That's what I said. I can't speak English, so buy once, cry once. What is your life worth? At a certain point, if you don't have reliable attachments on your fighting rifle, it becomes the weakest link. It becomes the greatest limitation to you. So two things: go out and train, buy reliable parts, something you can trust your life to. Guys, stay safe, carry on, and I'll see you on the roof.